Many might not expect it, but the answer is matchmaking. Before dating, with Wang Po as the matchmaker, traveling nationwide, providing audiences with endless applause and laughter. Now, dating analysts are quickly rising to fame, gaining hundreds of thousands of followers in just 3 days, opening new avenues for traffic secrets. These people stand like teachers, in front of a blackboard, holding a marker. It's like doing reading comprehension, identifying the conversational traps of dating prospects. Netizens are exclaiming how thrilling it is, even suggesting that this should be a course offered in universities. In fact, the emergence of the bizarre profession of dating analyst is not accidental. It reflects that the dating market has now entered a phase of intense competition, where the fierce battles are no less than small to medium-sized business wars. Hello everyone, I'm Feng Xiong, and in this episode, I'll be discussing the current issues in dating. The catchphrase of a dating analyst is this man marriage material? To solve this ultimate question, the analysis starts with the profile, identifying height patterns as over 5, simplify 4, under 5 is 0. If height is mentioned without weight, it likely means the person is quite overweight. For weight, curve right. For savings, curve left. If it's around 300,000, it actually means there isn't 300,000, followed by a habit that women generally dislike. So, if low frequency needs to be turned into high frequency, saying occasionally drinks actually means drinks often. The key is not what is said, but what is not said. Analysts would likely remind everyone of this. In this field, the topological master strategist, Wu Lian, once dissected a case. The man's parents are retired from public sector jobs, while he himself does some business. With his sharp insight, it's clear that his business is definitely reliant on family connections. This type of business is often in traditional fields, where social interactions are commonplace, and it's highly likely that smoking and drinking are constant companions, and visits to entertainment venues are certain. The most critical issue is that his family background and connections are intricate and complex. Although the business appears prosperous, you can't really gauge the income, and he hasn't even spared himself. To prove his reliability, he analyzes himself. He likes fitness. If he has money, that's a plus, as he is financially secure and knows self-discipline. If he doesn't have money, it's a drawback, as the muscles are gained at the expense of using his brain, distancing him further from money. Many of these matchmaking analysts have struggled at the grassroots level, having interacted with people from all walks of life, and have a bit of understanding about various industries. They are representatives of mastering human nature. They can deduce from just a few lines that the man might have mild depression or emotional disorders. What issues are there in the family? What are the income pitfalls? What are the weaknesses in energy? In short, they are like detectives using a magnifying glass to peel back the layers and investigate the details, aiming to uncover their background. Zhang Xuefeng in the matchmaking world lives up to his reputation, with the comment section buzzing with people doing their homework, either learning or expressing gratitude. Matchmaking, as an ancient practice, was once scoffed at by young people. In my youth, anyone who mentioned going on a blind date would definitely be looked down upon. It was seen as the stench of feudal ethics, a relic of history. Yet, in just over a decade, young people who prided themselves on free love are now enthusiastically engaging in matchmaking. Not only are they participating, but they have also elevated it to unprecedented heights, treating it as a branch of sociology. It seems to have become a beacon in the dark forest, with its holy light guiding their path. So where exactly does the problem lie? This touches on the essence of marriage, which Engels has already explored. Love is a productive force, while marriage is a growth relationship. Changes in love can shake the foundations of marriage. Under capitalism, marriage is essentially a transaction of money. If marriage from a decade ago still had a veil of tenderness, contemporary marriage has lost this disguise, and has completely turned into a bare transaction. A good match is a term frequently mentioned in today's marriages. This is a strict hierarchical feudal social order, where only those with matching social and political status and economic conditions are suitable for marriage alliances. But defining contemporary marriage merely as a transaction is too general. In a market economy, if all transactions were successful, it wouldn't provoke so much discussion. Just like the stock market, there are inevitably too many losers, and when transactions go wrong, people become indignant. The core issue here is the breakdown of hypergamy. Hypergamy was a traditional social custom in the past, where women tended to choose marriage partners from a higher social or economic class than themselves. For example, a woman from the imperial family would marry a man from class C, a woman from class C would marry a man from class B, and a woman from class B would marry a man from class A. The clever ones might have noticed the blind spot. What about the men at the bottom? As the largest group, they are ruthlessly abandoned in the marriage market. As people jokingly say, men at the bottom are not considered human. In reality, their desire to get married is very strong. Here, it's important to distinguish that longing for marriage and giving up on marriage are not contradictory, because many guys say they've given up and have no passion for marriage. This is actually because they can't afford to get married. The enormous cost makes them hesitate, and they are forced to give up, much like a sycophant. The economic collapse is also due to economic downturns, not self-awareness. In order to get a ticket to marriage, a man must give the woman a promise, which is today's exorbitant bride price. It compensates for the psychological imbalance after the woman's failed social mobility. Calling it a redemption ticket is not an exaggeration. However, as the wealth gap in society continues to widen, the deep-seated desire to compare oneself with others will keep growing internally, spreading into a monster and a demon. This promise can no longer fill the black hole of psychological imbalance, so the bride price keeps increasing. Until men exhaust all their efforts and still cannot afford it, they will leave the table. The men at the bottom of the marriage market, who have been exhausted by a lifetime of toil, will finally have a chance to catch their breath. I have repeatedly emphasized that exorbitant bride prices do not originate from tradition, nor do they have a long historical memory. They are tied to the real estate boom during rapid urbanization, embodying an economic characteristic unique to China's national condition. In ancient times, a bride's dowry often needed to exceed the bride price, otherwise her status in the husband's family would be very low. This is mentioned in The Plum in the Golden Vase, where Li Ping'er, who brought a fortune with her, had a higher status than the proletarian woman Pan Jinlian, and even the master had to show her some respect. As the largest proportion of dowries became proletarianized and were eliminated in the market, a severely unbalanced situation emerged. Women labeled as ABCD began to compete for the remaining ABC men, leading to a brutal struggle. A very interesting phenomenon emerged in the marriage market. Online dating profiles were heavily skewed towards female users. Each of them was independent, stunningly beautiful, and self-assured, either the daughter of a CEO or a career powerhouse. Yet, without exception, they portrayed themselves as innocent in relationships, always being deceived or simply not needing love at all. Male users don't receive such favorable treatment. They are often labeled as ordinary, sycophantic, or scumbags, with many being opportunistic freeloaders, seemingly confirming the media's conclusion from years ago that Chinese men are inferior to Chinese women. However, offline, the situation is completely reversed, with matchmakers advising women to face reality and be down to earth. Don't aim too high. There are no Middle Eastern princes to rescue. You. No oil tycoons to marry. You. These harsh truths are not pleasing to women. The matchmaking giant, which has organized 50 million blind dates, outright rejects resumes from women over 35, with age discrimination being quite blatant. Why is that? After the local men are out of the market, there is a massive surplus of women in the marriage market. To make money from them, targeted strategies are necessary. For online accounts, they aim to monetize traffic. Whether a deal is made or not doesn't matter, as women, who are in the relative majority in the market, are the main focus. Therefore, catering to their preferences is inevitable. As long as you keep pandering to and flattering the support of the sisters, it will bring endless money. On the contrary, if you frequently offer some immature suggestions, analyze pros and cons rationally, or even suggest compromises, at best, the account won't grow, and efforts will be wasted. At worst, you'll be swiftly knocked down, questioning your life choices. Matchmakers, on the other hand, are different now. Making successful matches is their only, or at least most important, source of income. No matter how much you flatter or provide emotional value and mental wellness support, when you see that the end-of-month performance is zero, there's nowhere to complain, and the scenery is vastly different on both sides. Online, women say the men pursuing them stretch from Shanghai to Cameroon and New Guinea. But offline, at matchmaking events, many organizations have to coerce and entice men with benefits to get them to attend and make up the numbers. Those within the system should deeply understand this. Matchmaking events in the city can indeed be quite embarrassing. For example, the 8-minute dating trend that started in Los Angeles originally belongs to Western dating culture. Sparks are supposed to fly, but it seems there's no connection. When it came to China, it was magically altered. No beating around the bush. First look at the actors, then ask about the car, whether the house and bride price have substantial additions. In the grand stage of China's melting pot, if you don't have the strength, please don't come. Men are leaving the scene one after another, and offline matchmaking is becoming increasingly difficult. Long-standing players like Zhenai.com and Jiayuan.com are almost turning into pyramid schemes now, and official romance scams are emerging one after another. There is basically no information verification, and member profiles are fabricated to lure people in. Encountering marriage scams is considered a minor issue. Some even entice you to buy a house with zero down payment, forcing you to pay. Recall the uproar caused by the Su Xiangmao and Zai Xingxing incident in 2017. This led the public's crisis of confidence in online dating platforms to reach its peak. Nowadays, what's more popular are high-end matchmaking events for 985 universities, matchmaking events at major companies, and interest-based matchmaking events. There are plenty of variations, but successful matches are still lacking. The collapse of successful matchmaking signifies the bankruptcy of classical free love. It is also the dilemma of arranged marriages under a planned economy. The romantic movement that began in the 18th century made free love popular, and for over 200 years, it has become the ultimate pursuit in intimate relationships. In the era when neoliberalism prevailed, this view of love was pushed to its peak. However, with the onset of social conservatism, the specter of traditional values has returned. Free love does not mean there is no performer. Without outstanding looks, exceptional talent, or a witty sense of humor, most people still end up as losers. In these unstable relationships, since everyone has the freedom to choose, so-called infidelity and betrayal, aside from moral condemnation, are basically not protected by law, and the damage to sexual relationships is irreversible. Premarital pregnancy, children born out of wedlock, and abortion. All these factors affect long-term relationships. Thus, people move from one extreme to another, from the supremacy of love to the belief that bread is the real truth. The emergence of matchmaking analysts signifies the complete disintegration of love, transactions being laid bare. They are more like hunters targeting their prey. For the perfect prey, they are willing to stake out for a long time, exhausting their energy and financial resources to seize that piece of fresh meat. The strategist's immeasurable fees are quite expensive, with personal consultation fees being $50,000 per year. But there's not much service, so it's not recommended to purchase. If you want one-on-one consultation, he typically doesn't show up himself. Instead, his disciples provide the service, charging 180 yuan per session. You can't catch a wolf without sacrificing a child, and this is certainly a case of using small investments for big returns. It's said that the annual income of the old female leader, QQ, has already exceeded 100 million. In this brutal competition for resources, many women will become the chives to be harvested. The dissolution of thousands of marriages doesn't mean that women's desire to marry up has disappeared. Instead, it's because their economic foundation has collapsed, unable to support this historical behavior. On the contrary, the more it collapses, the more people want to seize this last opportunity. Like the frenzied stance during the era of the 17 kings of the celestial domain, they are recklessly placing bets, driven to madness. I have a promising future, turning my life around and rising to success. This is the origin of the Chinese pastoral-style gender conflict. A middle school English teacher in Beijing, since his first blind date in 2017, has been meeting more and more male guests each year. By 2023, he was meeting an average of 125 people per year, yet the ideal partner never appeared on. He even created a spreadsheet to record each person's basic information and dating details, including their location, whether they have a house or car, where they met, who paid for the meal, and whether he returned to his dorm. At the most extreme, he would meet through Tencent Meeting, like an interview, because that day he had to meet 4 male guests in the morning while taking a walk, lunch at noon, tea in the afternoon, a meeting in the evening, and a night event. For this gamble, he has wasted a full 7 years. In his view, his selection criteria have been lowered quite a bit, but in the standardized process he personally designed, no one has been able to pass. The most common reason he gives is that he doesn't feel a spark. This English teacher's logic is largely the same as that of a dating analyst. Both have very strict selection and evaluation mechanisms, and once you approach it like solving a problem, there might never be anyone suitable in this world. Malthus, who wrote on the principle of population, once said something like this: I believe I can appropriately set down 2 postulates. First, food is necessary for human survival. Second, the passion between the sexes is inevitable, and will almost certainly remain unchanged, no matter how resolute a person may be. Saying I don't need a man, I don't need a woman. However, intimate relationships are unavoidable. It's just that pure romance has vanished. There are only countless rational economic agents in market games. If the 80s and 90s were the golden age of love, then the 2000s were the silver age, and the 2010s were the bronze age. Today's love has withered away. Is there anything less romantic than a cost-benefit analysis? Looking at it this way, not only do many people fail to enter marriage, but even more love may appear. Those without compensation can only laugh at themselves. Understanding incel, becoming incel, let what should perish, perish. Guarding is useless, and the right path is unnecessary. One should face it calmly. But as an individual, there are still choices. Don't be a self-doubting, self-pitying little snot. The world is actually very big, and worth exploring.